All right, we're in Exodus chapter 35, verses 4 through 29, and also chapter 36, verses 3 through 7. Quick questions here. Who did God command to contribute the material for the building of his house? This is in chapter 35, and looking in verse 5. The last part of it says, everyone who is willing is to bring to the Lord an offering of gold, silver, bronze, etc. Not a command to say everyone needs to give this amount, not a 10% like the tithe, not everyone needs to give so many shekels, everyone needs to give. No, everyone who is willing, and only those who are willing, are to bring for the offering of the Lord. Where did they get the material? Verse 5, the beginning of it says, from what you have taken offering. So they weren't to go and take it from the Philistines or go take it from some Canaanites. They were to give of themselves, what was in their own tents, what was their own possessions. That's where they were to get this material. And then was there enough? This is jumping into chapter 36 and the end of it, verse 6, or the end of this section, verse 6 says, no man or Moses gave this order that no man or woman is to make anything else as an offering for the sanctuary. And so the people were restrained from bringing more. Verse 7, because what they already had was more than enough to do all the work. There was, yes, enough and even more than enough. Number 4, question 4, in chapter 32, verses 2 through 4, what had they previously given for? Well, when Aaron made the call, he said, bring the earrings from your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring that for an offering for the golden calf. They had previously used their own material to contribute to building this idol that they would worship. And then the 5th question, considering that and the events that took place from then, from the golden calf experience, to this point, what do you think caused them to contribute the amount they did? What was it when Moses gave the command and all Israel heard in the congregation that God is saying, now everyone who's willing, no tax, no set number. If you're willing, if you're not willing, don't bring anything. But everyone who's willing, come and bring something of yourself for an offering of God. When the people disperse, when the people go back to their tents, when they go back to their little area in the camp, what's going through their mind that motivated them to bring, to give? They take a little bit, oh, let's take that as well. They take more, and then they're coming with their hands full, coming with baskets full, coming with all of this material, sacrificially giving. What was it that went through their mind that motivated them to do this? Well, of course, with any motivation there or any group giving, you're going to have some people who may have been motivated by fear, or some people may have been motivated by the idea that maybe God would give them more if they gave. But I want to believe, and I think it's reasonable to conclude, that a large portion of these Israelites were giving this in sincere gratitude for what they had seen of God along the way. And particularly from that golden calf experience, they remembered, they went back to their tents and they remembered the earrings that were once there that they had given to contribute to the golden calf. And now they remember that's what they were willing to sacrifice. Those earrings that were probably precious to them. They got them from the Egyptians when leaving Egypt, and they were probably proud to have them. But those things they were willing to part with and make a sacrifice of those things to defy God, to go into apostasy, to worship a golden calf. I believe that when they thought about that and thought about the fact that God was disappointed with them, yes, angry with them, but he eventually in chapter 33 of Exodus says, I'm not even going to go up among the camp. I'm going to leave the camp and take my dwelling place and put it outside of the camp. No longer will I dwell in the midst of the camp. And putting in jeopardy the whole idea of building a sanctuary that he might dwell among them. Then Moses intercedes in chapter 33 and chapter 34. God says, okay, yes, I will dwell among them. And so God decides to come back in the camp. And seeing that God forgave them for that golden calf experience, seeing that God was still willing to put up with their hard-heartedness, to put up with their rebellion and accept them back, I want to believe that's what was going through their minds when they went back to their tent. And when they looked and saw, well, I don't have those earrings I gave for the golden calf. All I have are the things that were too precious to give for the golden calf. The few possessions that I said that these are too much. I can't give these because this would be too costly. But these things now, they were willing to give for the construction of the sanctuary of God. These things they were willing to sacrifice, they were willing to part with. Not only that, it says that the women even made things. They used their looking glasses and used those to make the laver for the washing basin for Aaron and his sons when going into the tabernacle. They're sacrificially giving now and giving beyond the need. They're giving so much that it had to be stopped. They said, okay, this is enough. Why? Because of gratitude. Gratitude, I believe, because of God's forgiveness. Gratitude because God had borne with them despite their rebellions, despite their inconsistencies, despite their unfaithfulness. God had shown himself to be faithful. And because of that, I believe they were motivated to give such a liberal offering. Last question. The Bible often refers to God's people, the church, as God's house. And there's some references there where he does that. How can we use the example of this passage to better understand how we should contribute to building God's house, to building up the church? No, not materially, not physically. Yes, giving of our financial means, that's all well and good. But Paul uses this term in the New Testament, edify, like an edifice is something, a building. He's talking about building up the church of the living God, which are the people, which is the men and women that comprise the church, the boys and girls as well, that comprise the church of God. How can we contribute? Why should we contribute? What should motivate us to contribute based on this passage? Well, we can contribute in many ways. We contribute of our time when we serve others. We minister to the needs of the saints. That's a theme in the New Testament. We help each other. We help the widows, help the orphans, help the weak, the poor saints particularly, as well as others. But we are helping to contribute of ourselves to build up. But not only that, but giving of our talents. What abilities do we have that we can contribute? And how can we sacrificially give of those talents to build up, to encourage the saints of God, to instruct the saints of God, to help the saints of God? How can we do these things to build up the kingdom of God? We see people falling by the wayside, being discouraged and maybe departing from their faith, not as consistent in something. What material do I have in my tent? What talents, what treasure, what things do I have that God has given to me that I can use to encourage the people, to provoke them to love? That's a phrase used in Hebrews in chapter 10, I believe it is. To provoke them to love and to good works. What can we use to help people along the way? And not only that, what should be our motivation for this? Just like the Israelites of old, when we think about the things that we've sacrificed, I know I think about myself. I've used my mind, I've used my body, I've used my abilities for evil in the past. I've wasted my talents, I've wasted my abilities on things that were defying God, on things that were worshiping another God, things that were even tearing down the kingdom of God, drawing people away from the kingdom of God. And when I think of the fact that God has forgiven me for those things, that God has forgiven me, that God has been faithful to me even though I've not been faithful, when God has been consistent even when I've not been consistent, when I think of those things, then I see all of my possessions, all of my abilities as not enough to give to the one who has given everything for me. And let this be the motivation when you're tired and you don't want to go to church and serve. You have some assignment that you accepted in the church and you don't feel like giving. You're up late at night planning some program that you don't think anyone's going to attend. You're laboring long with people preparing for a Bible study. You're giving a Bible study. They're not understanding the topic. Whatever it is, you're preparing for a program, preparing to do music, preparing to serve as an usher, to serve as a deacon, to serve as an elder. In whatever way you are working to build up the church of the living God, let this be your motivation. Let the goodness of God, the giving of God, the forgiveness of God shown towards you, may that motivate you and push you to say that no sacrifice is too great to give for him who has given all for me. And by this material, may we contribute and be restrained from giving. And God have to say it's too much, as he never will say. It's too much. Stop from giving because you have been willing to give in abundance and overflow and beyond what is needed.